Christian McCaffrey, not at OTAs. We're going to find out what that means, or speculate maybe what that means. Lamb, no show. Brandon Aiyuk, no show. Derrick Henry, looking like a monster right now in that Baltimore Raven uniform. Look, we've got to come to a realization that he is going to be the outlier until he's not. 28 years old is the kiss of death year for most running backs, and you hold your breath when they walk into it. This guy did it at 28. He's entering his 29-year-old season. We're not worried about Derrick Henry because we're not expecting him to get 1,400 yards. We're expecting him to get 15 touchdowns, even if he gets 900 yards. And it's just such a dangerous opportunity for him. We saw Gus Bus be really awful last year, but played very well in a lot of ways, fantasy-wise, because he was in that situation that we're talking about, where you're just getting fed these multiple touchdown games. So that's what we're looking at in Derrick Henry. And how much should we be, talking about Derrick Henry? I'll tell you, we're going to be digging into it here in a second. And Derrick Henry is going to be a big focal point of this show. And the fact that he's going at 31 overall, I venture to say some of the hype videos, the videos of him in the Baltimore Ravens jersey, taking handoffs from Lamar talking him up today, probably does creep his ADP into the 20s. I don't know if he breaches round 2, though. And anywhere in round 3 is kind of a home run type pick in 2024 fantasy football. So we'll be attacking that and more. We've got Lamar, Kyren, Bijan Robinson, a little dinged up right now. Tons of news to go over. JD5 throwing dimes. The fantasy football show begins now.
Live from the FantasyFootballShow.com studios. It's the Fantasy Football Show. Live! Monday through Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern. Smitty is also live whenever news breaks.
From the FantasyFootballShow.com news desk, here is your breaking news.
I don't even know where to begin. There's so much news here. Let's just start off by saying, let's talk about Derrick Henry. Let's talk about Derrick Henry. Let's talk about the fact that this guy looks like an absolute monster in the backfield. He looks like a total threat to be a 2-touchdown performer every single time he hits the field. And even if he has 50, 60, 70 yards, he's averaging 4.2 yards per carry because he is slowing down. We did see him slow down. His motor is definitely coming to a little bit of a not a crawl, but like a little bit of a downward, trend. It doesn't matter because Gus Edwards was awful in Baltimore last year, even though he was able to have several performances that were like top 6, top 5. We have the Gus Edwards stat line here that I can put on screen and discuss it. I think it's this one right here. That's James Conner. Conner was similar to Gus. They both had very, very similar years where you last year where you see a bunch of horrible games and then they had a couple of spike weeks that were just massive. But Gus Edwards, you look at Gus Edwards right here and you say to yourself, this is 6, the 6th highest scoring running back in week 7, the 3rd, the 6th right here, and a bunch of horrible weeks. This is out of all running backs in the standard fantasy football scoring in PPR. But the amount of touchdowns that he can get, mixed with so Henry's getting this opportunity, mixed with a better running back than Gus Edwards, even a slightly declining Derrick Henry is going to perform a much higher level. And they're throwing to him in OTAs. They're throwing to him like crazy. There was 3 or 4 highlight clips where Lamar's tossing this rock to Derrick Henry. He's catching the ball. And Todd Monken's probably going to use Derrick Henry different than he was ever used in Tennessee. Derrick Henry's been typecasted into a between-the-tackles type running back, but we've always said to each other, like in a live stream, why don't they throw to him more? Like, you dump it off to Derrick Henry. He's not dropping the football on the regular or something. You dump it off to Henry. He's in wide open space, and he gets moving like a freight train, and then you can't stop him. If anything, I would throw to Henry almost as much as I'd run to him as he's winding down. Why? Because where he's going to struggle is between the tackles as he loses that step and can't hit that hole. Remember when Derrick Henry entered the league, it took him years to hit the hole properly, and he couldn't pass DeMarco Murray, he couldn't pass Dion Lewis, and it took him a while to get that quick feet, to work on his footwork, to hit the hole. If he's losing that, he's going to have a problem between the tackles, getting room to run and navigate before the pocket closes. In the NFL, the pocket, or the hole, closes really quickly. The pocket collapses really quickly. So Derrick Henry's going to have to figure out other ways to maneuver, gain that freight train speed. And what better way than to give him the football in the flat, let him gain a little momentum, then he's a freight train. I mean, think about it. In Tennessee, how many times did they dump the ball off to him? He started running, he gained momentum, and he went 65, 70 yards down the field. And then they didn't use him like that the remainder of the year. Or for weeks at a time, you wouldn't see it. And you'd be like, what are you doing? Why not use Derrick Henry as a very, very, very productive receiving back? I think Todd Monken's going to tap into that a little bit. And I think Todd Monken's going to say, this Gus Edwards line here, we're not seeing this out of Derrick Henry. We're seeing Derrick Henry get multiple touchdowns multiple times. We're going to see him probably have at least 1 3-touchdown game this year, maybe 2. And at least, I would say, 3 or 4 double-digit touchdown performances. We're talking about, if he plays even 14, 15 games, we're talking about a 14 or 15 touchdown running back minimum. Does that mean he runs for 900 yards and kind of disappoints there and we don't care? Maybe. Maybe he pulls in 400-something receiving yards, runs for 900, and has a sum total of, 1,400, 1,300, 1,500 yards, but 15 scores. That will get it done. That will put Derrick Henry in a very, very good cost of entry ROI, return on your investment in fantasy, from 31 overall. And dare I say, even this guy, this is me adjusting and adapting too, because I will continue to stand on the 28-year-old running back is the last and final year you can expect anything. I will continue to use history as my guide there, and I will continue to urge you guys to as well. But in the case of Derrick Henry, this is an outlier that I'm willing to even expect another solid year out of Derrick Henry in 2024, especially at the cost of entry, which is lower than we've ever seen it. If he was going in first round territory, I would still be like, hey, he's too old. We can't go down this road anymore. But because his ADP has finally, for the first time since he's become an elite player, has dropped into the 3rd and 4th round, it's time to invest. It's even, dare I say, time to put him on one of the lists because of the cost of entry. The Moon Man, the Mars Man, the Saturn Man. These are not lists that we create for unknown players that have never done it before. These are not lists that only are around for players to be found and have hidden gems emerge. This is a list that has on the Saturn Man list, the very top of the top, 2 of the best players in football. But they're underrated to a significant degree in Jalen Hurts and Patrick Mahomes, both going in round 4 and round 5, or at least both of them in round 4. These are 2 of the biggest steals in all of fantasy football 2024, Patrick Mahomes and Derrick Henry. Patrick Mahomes and Jalen Hurts. But dare I say, Derrick Henry now enters the equation to at least enter the Mars Man or Moon Man territory, because the cost of entry, the ROI, is so significantly, amazingly baked in. There's no risk at all, essentially, grabbing this guy at 31 overall. I mean, there's a little risk. Obviously, any player can go down. He's older. But if he plays even 14, 15 games, you're getting what you pay no matter what. And if he over-delivers, you're winning a league. So without further ado, and in a very strange turn of events dating back to a year or 2 ago, if we would have talked about this and said, hey, Smitty, 1 year from today, 2 years from today, you'll have Derrick Henry reemerge in your list of go-get players because of cost of entry and how opportunistic it is to grab him, I would have said you're crazy. But I'm going to put Derrick Henry on the Mars Man list right now because of the cost of entry and the ROI staring you right in the face.
He's on a shuttle to Mars. Mars Man.
Derrick Henry is, ladies and gentlemen, a Mars man, which
dropping and
is
spinning
absolutely
aimlessly in
unreal
space.
when you think about it. Just absolutely unreal. This is not something I would have ever saw coming a year ago from today. But everything, this is a adjust and adapt. This is bob and weave. This is this is me trying to leave bias completely out of the equation. And when we look at Derrick Henry going at 31 overall, there's no risk at all. There's no risk at all. And if they throw this man the football, and I believe they will, I believe Todd Monken, who's turned this offense around in 1 year, imagine what he does with a full offseason of Lamar, because Lamar wasn't around the whole offseason. He was holding out. Remember his mom by the pot of stew, waiting by the phone in the kitchen, waiting for the contract, waiting for all that. We're seeing a full offseason of Lamar. We're seeing a full offseason of this team with Todd Monken having all of it together. This guy catching footballs, and a majority of the highlights today were receiving plays where Lamar was throwing it to Derrick Henry. It wasn't just handoffs. And he looks dangerous. He looks absolutely dangerous. And another thing I'm going to tell you, you know what I like? We talked about this yesterday. You know what I like more than a player that feels like a breakout? A player that feels like a bounce back or breakout or return to glory or retains his glory. You know what I like better than that? A said player of that category, but also one that's playing for incentives. And we did this yesterday with Saquon Barkley. Barkley has over $4 million in incentives, which is why Barkley is 1,000% a Mars man.
He's on a shuttle to Mars. Mars man.
Barkley a Mars man. There's his incentive sheet right there to remind us whenever we need to pull that bad boy up.
And spinning aimlessly.
Derrick Henry, his incentive sheet, just a little bit of a nugget to give you perspective on where his mindset's going to be at. This guy can gain 2-year deal, $16 million with the Baltimore Ravens, with another $4 million like Saquon Barkley, $4 million in available incentives, 1,200 rushing yards, $500,000. You think this guy wants to run for 900 yards? He wants to earn $500K is what he wants to do. 1,500 yards, $500,000 additional by hitting another 300 yards. 13 touchdowns, $500K. This guy's grabbing that $500K. 15 touchdowns, $500K. 1,000 yards rushing, the team wins the Super Bowl, $500K. There couldn't be a better list of incentives here than these. These are so fantasy football friendly. This is what we want. These incentives are glory. These incentives are exactly what the doctor ordered when it comes to Derrick Henry and our expectation for this guy walking into the upcoming season. Nothing excites me more than when a guy's getting paid $500,000 to run for 1,500 yards and 1,200 yards. $1 million if he runs for 1,500 yards. Not $500K. $1 million if he runs for 1,500 yards. $1 million if he scores 15 touchdowns. Do we understand how significant that is? Contract year, Smitty. When a guy's in a contract year, he plays out of his mind. Najee Harris is in a contract year. He's playing out of his mind. How about playing for $2 million? How about scoring 15 touchdowns and 1,500 yards and getting $2 million? How does that sound? Sounds pretty good to me. And I'm pretty damn excited about Derrick Henry in 2024. And he is a Mars man extraordinaire because of the cost of entry. Something I would have never guessed I would have done or said or put on the Mars man or Moon man or Saturn man list. But guess what? That's how you know that this man right here doesn't use bias. This man right here will adjust and adapt. It's what I try and teach everyone to do, most of all, adjust and adapt, even mid-season, even after week 1, even with players we love. We did it with Kenneth Walker after about week 3 or 4. I said, coming close, we're going to look to trade him. And everyone said, what are you talking about? You've been talking this guy up all offseason. And I said, I don't trust Pete Carroll. He's scoring a massive amount of touchdowns. Walker was a top 5 running back through about week 3, 4, 5, something like that. And I said, come in close. We might need to get rid of him on the high because I don't know that these touchdowns with the lack of volume are sustainable. And it was adjust and adapt. It was adjust and adapt. It happens. And it's how you truly dominate and win in fantasy football. Heading to more news. So Derrick Henry, phenomenal. Let's stick on the Ravens real quickly and say there is some concern for Lamar, though. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to sit here and say that Lamar is going to get hurt. I'm not going to sit here and say that this thing ends badly at the end of the day, or he misses. Lamar could miss 2 or 3 games, and Henry could be leaned upon, and they could still win 1 or 2 of the 3 games, and they could still be a playoff contending team. They could still win a Super Bowl if Lamar missed 2 or 3 games in the middle of the year. My concern for Lamar from a fantasy perspective is this drop in weight. And I know everyone's going to say, look, I'm not an idiot. None of us are. This isn't our first rodeo. We understand the concept. If he's lighter, he's quicker. And he doesn't. The thing you hear most people regurgitate is Lamar doesn't take big hits. Well, let me tell you something. He plays in the NFL. He plays in the NFL. And a big hit can come from a blindside hit in sack. A big hit can come from a pocket collapsing. A big hit can come from any situation you can think of. He's not going to just always slide. He's going to be trying to get a first down because they're going to have to punt if they don't. There's going to be tons of scenarios where he takes a big hit. So I would say that the fact that he's gone from 230 to 215 last year, 225 to 230 to 215. Let's call it 215 pounds last year. He dropped down to 215. We expressed a little bit of concern, not tremendous concern, not sounding the alarm. We weren't necessarily hitting the panic button and going absolutely crazy and bonkers.
Alert. Panic mode in.
We were merely saying, I don't know that I love this. This guy runs a lot, takes a lot of hits. He's already elusive enough. I don't really want to hear that, oh, imagine how elusive he'll be. He's plenty elusive. He doesn't, I don't even know you can get any more elusive than Lamar at his 215-pound weight. Being lighter doesn't make me really believe he's going to be all that more, like, hard to like, think about it. For every time he goes untouched because he's a little bit quicker, what about the times where someone gets a hand on him and he's 15 pounds lighter? Like, he's going to slip away from a closing in pocket where guys have their arms on him and he's stronger. He's 15 pounds stronger, 10 to 15 pounds, and he just muscles his way out of somebody's grip as they're trying to pull his jersey down because he's got a bigger upper body. So you can say till you're blue in the face, oh, he's going to avoid big hits, he's going to be quicker, he's going to be harder to contain, but every time he gains something, he will probably lose something. He probably will be pulled down inside the pocket when he normally wouldn't be because he doesn't have the strength to necessarily fend off a bigger offensive lineman trying to drag him down. So I don't know that this is just going to be, it equates to better running. I think if anything, it probably washes and then adds in the component of getting more likely to get injured when he's running the ball and getting hit by a linebacker or an offensive lineman, falling on top of him. He looks very significantly smaller. Not to mention, maybe his arm strength won't be affected, but I kind of doubt that his arm strength would be as good, but maybe it is. I mean, we've seen skinny guys throw, missiles down the field. So but this is his body, and his body just got a lot, smaller. So, and then on top of that, you have a lot of people that will come to you and say, when you drop this amount of weight, he could have done it in absolutely nutritious fashion to a T. But there is bone density concerns. There is, you drop the weight and then you fracture your leg. His bone density, that can happen when you drop significant weight. You go out there and you take professional hits, not just any Joe walking down the street or going to work in his cubicle drops 15 pounds, but a professional athlete taking hits from 300-pound linemen. It is a little bit of a concern. I'm not saying he didn't do it properly. I'm not saying he's going to stave off most of that risk, but there is some bone density concerns on that kind of drop. So this guy doesn't just walk away from injury because he's slippery now. He's already slippery. He's about as slippery as they come. And now he's going to be dragged down a lot easier when people get hands on him. I don't like it. I don't think it's smart. Going from 230, 225 down to 215, I'm fine with that. He didn't get hurt last year. That's probably the secret sauce weight for him, 215. I mean, I didn't know if it would work. It did. And I Smitty approved 215. I'd say Lamar, 215. But now that he's at 205, I'm a little bit hitting the panic.
Alert.
Just a wee bit. Not total. Not. I mean, I just talked up Henry. I just talked up the Ravens. I think the Ravens are definitely adding the component that they needed in order to advance to the playoffs. This whole notion that Lamar can carry them every single week and not falter, it doesn't work. This is why the Philadelphia Eagles had to go get a running back, and they smartly did, because you can't expect this to be carried by Hurts every single game. You shut down Hurts, you shut down A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. You shut down Lamar, you shut down the passing game. There's no running game. Gus Edwards isn't winning you a Super Bowl. DeAndre Swift, as good as he was when he was forced to be a between-the-tackle running back, and I think they broke him. That's why I go nowhere near him in Chicago. You can't win a Super Bowl running DeAndre Swift. So the fact that you bring in Barkley, the fact that you bring in Henry, in these two situations, these two teams could meet in the Super Bowl. I do have KC. This is the old bracket, by the way. This is last year's bracket. But, you know, the KC Chiefs won. I think the KC Chiefs are still my favorite in the AFC, but this very much could be what team fixed things like we said they needed to advance. Could the Dallas Cowboys have been involved? Had they gone after Henry? They didn't even call him. What an idiot move by the Dallas Cowboys. Look, I'm hang gliding. Ah, I'm dead. I'm an idiot. What a dumb move by the Dallas Cowboys back there. What are they doing back there? Nothing. The answer is nothing. Sitting on their hands. But guess who did step up and change their destiny? The Eagles and the Baltimore Ravens. And if I had to be a betting man at this point, I'd say Eagles, Ravens, and KC are ahead of the game. Of course, there's guys sneaking up. Houston, Pittsburgh, Green Bay. Detroit again. The Rams, Burrow and the boys. But that doesn't mean that if I had to put something on it, I'd say, give me the returning champs, give me Mahomes, and give me the two teams that did what I said they needed to do in the offseason to be the difference maker. Bring in the RB to help the quarterback balance it out so that no team can stop your offense the entirety of the consecutive games needed to win a Super Bowl, because just a quarterback will eventually get stopped in one of the contests that you need to win consecutively when it's the toughest, time of the year, is what we're saying. All right, so Lamar Jackson, my thinking here is 205 is too light. I hope he changes his mind. I hope he ends up saying, you know what, let me put back on another 5 or 10. But for those that say, don't worry, he'll gain it throughout. No, he's already said very clearly he's not going to gain it. His objective is to not gain the weight. He wants to play at 205, and I think it's a problem. Bijan Robinson, here's kind of I want to just reference this all at once if I could, because I think people are obviously, they're freaking out about Kyren Williams like crazy. Everyone and their mother is just petrified about Kyren Williams, just absolutely petrified. So you have, I don't know where my Kyren clip is. I think it's right here. So you got Kyren Williams. You've got Bijan Robinson. You've got no Christian McCaffrey, not necessarily due to injury, but he's not reporting to OTAs. You got no Aiyuk, but Bijan's banged up and sitting out. Do you hear anybody saying, oh my God, Algiers taking over the job? What are we doing here? And I don't want to hear that Kyren's no Bijan Robinson. Kyren is a top 1 to 5 running back. Kyren is capable of being the number 1 overall rusher, yardage-wise and touchdown-wise, not receiving-wise. Bijan's going to blow him out of the water. And at the end of the day, Bijan blows everyone out of the water, in my opinion. But let's not pretend that Kyren's not in the top 5 running back wheelhouse, okay? Because he is. I don't care. Blake Corum was average in college at best metrics-wise. He had tons of volume and an offense that sat him right in front of the end zone and fed him touchdown after touchdown. And guess what? as big of a system guy as Corum is, he's going to an amazing system. So he's a must cuff, and that's why we talk about Corum and Kyren as the best handcuff, the must-have handcuff in all of fantasy football. And you have to be ashamed of yourself. Your mom's ashamed of you if you walk out of your upcoming draft, your redraft league, or your best ball draft, or your new dynasty startup that you're going to have, and you don't have these two guys cuffed together because they're a top 5 running back. But you don't hear people say, oh, Bijan, I'm worried about Bijan. You don't hear people say, oh, I'm worried about Aiyuk, even though they should be, because this could drag out a lot longer than anybody wants. You don't hear anybody saying, oh, where's Christian McCaffrey? Is he going to get hurt now? But when Kyren Williams does, then it gets crazy up in here. It gets crazy. Now he's, oh my God, Kyren, is he going to even start week 1? Does he have a Liz Frank injury? You were already told by McVay it's not even a big deal. McVay even clarified it was mostly precautionary. Take him off the field because he doesn't need to be dragging sleds 100 yards down the field. And if he has any soreness at all in his pinky toe or his heel or his foot or anywhere, they don't want him in May to tax himself and create a problem. So they took Kyren off the field and said, relax. Take a month and relax, bro. Do some work with the head trainers and just get your body in the most pristine condition you can so you can attack and stave off any injury that heads your way this year. There is a little injury risk with Kyren. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to run from that, which is why the must cuff is Corum Kyren. No doubt about it whatsoever. Are we very sensitive tonight? Why are you sensitive tonight, Sir Lax? What, does somebody push your buttons? Because I don't know what's so sensitive, what you're so sensitive about. Sean McVay, Bijan, we've got news reports all over where we don't know what's going on with Christian McCaffrey. As far as Bijan Robinson, head coach Raheem Morris said Bijan ankle should be able to participate in the team's mandatory minicamp in June. Like, I don't hear anybody screaming about this. I'm not worried about it. I'm just saying, why are we acting like this guy can't come out and be an absolute monster in June because he's sitting out right now? A lot of players are sitting out. This is common practice when anybody at all suffers any sort of injury. Even right here. Xavier Worthy tweaked his hamstring. He'll probably sit out the remainder of the next few weeks minimum. And you're just going to see this happen quite a bit. This is football. And players are going to sit out for precautionary reasons. Now, Christian McCaffrey, I don't know if this is contract related. I don't really think anybody knows. The fact that Christian McCaffrey did show up for all of this voluntary stuff last year, I believe to a T. I think he was there from start to finish, at least the majority of it, makes me think there's something going on. Unless we're going to hear the fact that Shanahan, though, went to a podium and said, I like for people to be here, but it is voluntary. We'll see what happens when we get to the mandatory stuff. He didn't say, oh, no, I've talked to Christian. He's got a family issue. Or I talked to Christian. He's coming. Don't worry. He did say that Christian McCaffrey, wasn't there and, didn't really have an answer for it. And said he would like to see everybody during voluntary workouts show up, but he wasn't there, but we'll see what happens. So I don't know if there's some sort of contract situation. Now, he does have one more year and then a voidable year. So it's possible that Christian McCaffrey is actually trying to get paid one more time. I don't blame him. He's the heart and soul of the team. I'm not really sure, but I would definitely say that Christian McCaffrey getting paid in the midst of them trying to pay Aiyuk, in the midst of them trying to hammer out a Brock Purdy extension, I don't think this is going to happen. You never know if there's a 1-year adjusted deal. The contract landscape for the NFL has very much changed in the last couple of years. Not so much that any of the rules have changed, but that we're seeing teams do very creative things that have always been available to them, but they never did it. Adjusted 1-year deals to franchise tag players. Players holding out has a grudge. And T. Higgins, I bet you we see this with T. Higgins. T. Higgins didn't sign his extension or his franchise tag tender, so he's not even under contract right now. A deadline will be approaching for that, but T. Higgins has not signed that franchise tag tender. And essentially what teams are doing, and it's very smart, is they go to T. Higgins. They did this with Barkley, and they said, look, they didn't say this to him, but I think this is the general tone, and with the agent, right? The backdoor conversation between team and agent is, look, he needs to save face, right? Because he's held out. He doesn't want people to think he's a folder, right? And he wants something. So let's explore this 1 year adjusted contract offer to the franchise tagee, right? And you say, hey, instead of getting, in the case of running back, like franchise tag running, or in the case of T. Higgins, 21 mil, I think, is what the franchise tag amount for is a wide receiver, roughly. You approach him and say, we'll give you $24 million for the year instead of a 1 year adjusted deal, $24 million. We can't afford to do what T. Higgins wants to do, but let's give him $2 or $3 million or $1 million. Sometimes it's $1 or $2 million. And that way they look like they got something. And then they're not folding. They're not, meeting in the middle and diving. They feel like, okay, I'll take it. I won. I'll come in. And that's the way you can handle this. Maybe Christian McCaffrey gets some sort of 1 year adjusted deal on top of it, or they do some sort of crazy contract maneuver. I don't even know if you can do that with a 2 year deal, because he's got 1 year. I know with T. Higgins they can do it. I know with anybody that's not under contract they can offer that. Even if you sign your franchise tag, they can do that. There's so many weird things, like Diggs' voiding of his contract was so wild and out there. I don't think anybody was even thinking that was a possibility. Even someone like myself that's been around for 20 plus years professionally, never crossed my mind at all. Never crossed my mind that Diggs would get traded and the team and him would come to a conclusion that they want to void a majority of his big, fat contract. So we don't know what can happen. Anything can happen in the contract landscape. It's weird that we even thought that there were restrictions around some of this because we're so used to seeing things done a certain way. So who the hell knows? But Christian McCaffrey, not present right now at voluntary OTAs, and it does make you wonder what in the hell is going on there. But no one's complaining about that. But Kyren Williams, he's sitting out OTAs, and everybody's having a Shiat storm. And that's fine, because you know who's going to the moon? No, not Kyren. He ain't going to the moon. You know who's going to Saturn? His name is Kyren Williams, and everybody that's doubting him is going to look embarrassed later. Because guess what? We're cuffing Corum. And if Corum gets in there and runs for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns in back-to-back weeks in week 4 and 5, someone's going to come in and go, told you. And we're going to go, nope, we told you.
The Saturn Men.
One small step for man, one giant leap for Saturn.
We told you. There's no you told us. This is a combo. This is a handcuff. Look at this monster. Look at this top 5 running back. Right here, this combo, this duo. His name's Kyren. He's doing it live. His name is Kyren Williams, young man.
He's Kyren. He's 7 feet tall. And he knows how to handle a ball. He's Kyren. He can take frowns and turn them upside down with his touchdowns.
Let's see here. What's Cyrelax or whatever the hell your name is? Oh my God, you are a quack with the bully pulpit. Do you actually hear yourself? I guess I didn't realize we had a hater in the building. So, we'll see you later. I mean, you don't have to be here. You don't have to be here. Why come in? Why come in? Act like you enjoy a show, turn on the show, and then sit in the chat and try and antagonize people and expect us to want you around. It doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. We got 2 super chats. Pros is in the building. Hector, appreciate you. Hector says, got Corum and 2025 third for Swift. Smitty approved. This could be tough because I'm not saying Swift busts right away. He could have a good beginning of the year. He could have some good games. But at the end of the day, in a dynasty, give me Corum and a 25 third all day long. All day long. And that's not to say I don't love Kyren. But guess what now, Hector? And maybe you have Kyren, then it's a smash. But if you don't have Kyren, I would go after Kyren in trade offers right now because you got Corum. It's a way to reverse engineer a trade. And I have a reverse engineer trade video coming out which talks about this, and and I specifically am going to highlight, you go get Corum, you draft Corum, and then you pressure the owner who has Kyren to just say, damn it, why'd you take him? And then the news is kind of buzzing around, right? Kyren's sitting out OTAs, and then you send him a link to some bad, report about it on Twitter, and then he starts folding and goes, you know what, I'll just send you Kyren. Here you go. Because who wants to own Kyren right now without Corum? And if you step on someone's feet, you take Corum, you're reverse engineering a trade, and it's masterful. Masterful, I tell you. Absolutely masterful. Bros Pros, Henry throw for 2 TDs this year. Yes, throws. Hey, I wouldn't be surprised if he threw at least, 1 touchdown. Henry does throw some missiles down the field once in a while. Henry to Flowers, maybe? Henry to Andrews, Henry to Lamar. You never know. Could be the case. All right, let's see here. So Bijan Robinson's sitting out right now, and it will be sitting out until June. So, you're going to judge Kyren, you better judge Bijan. I better not hear somebody judging Kyren and not judging Bijan. Oh, but Kyren's missed time before. Well, okay, if that's your argument. Have fun watching the explosion. Xavier Worthy, he's out for right now. We'll see how long. This kid right here. I mean, look, there's times where I think I'm right. I think I'm right. I think it's going to work out. I'm feeling pretty good about what I'm seeing. My prediction worries me because of coaching. My prediction worries me a little bit over here because of that. I'm sitting here. I'm concerned, and I don't really know. Sorry to the folks who traded for Kyren when this dude said he was a top 5 running back. Okay, if you don't want to be here, you don't have to be here either. There you go. Now you're gone too. What was I saying? Jade Reed, you think you're going to come in here and just drag down the chat and you're going to stay around? Like, what will make you think that anybody wants you here doing that? You're a negative presence in the chat, creating hate, creating animosity, trying to rile people up. And you think you're just going to stay. Like, oh, this guy's talking. Like, oh, this guy doesn't let me speak my mind. You're not speaking your mind. You're literally coming in and you're doing a very bad job because no one cares. People watching this channel love the channel. You're not taking them away because your comment of, this guy talks about him being a top 5 running back. His replacements draft. They drafted his replacement, this running back that's nowhere near Kyren's level. Corum, he's just going to take the job from the guy McVay loves like his own child. Oh, everyone's going to go running from your comment. But you think you're going to stay. Okay. This guy right here. Like, as I was saying before, I was rudely interrupted. JD5. There's times where I go, I think I'm right, like in the case of Arthur Smith, whatever, things get in the way. In the case of Christian Watson, we had injuries get in the way, and something could get in the way of JD5. I'm not saying injury can't strike anybody. But good God, man, when I'm looking at all the predictions I'm making, I look at the Saturn Man list, for example.
The Saturn Men.
One small step for man, one giant leap for Saturn.
Like, little bit of risk, sure. I'm not afraid of risk. Does Kellen Moore actually get the offense going? I believe so. I believe so. Philly did, is there a little risk because Philly didn't quite bounce back yet before our very eyes? Sure. Gibbs, is there a little risk there? I guess you could say like a smidge of like Achane. Sure. Is there kind of a bit of volume? Sure. Bijan, well, he's misused before. We're pretty sure he won't be this time. But in Breece Hall, he's relying on Aaron Rodgers. Like, I get it. There's risk involved in everything. You could pick apart anything. Is Kyren what if Kyren gets hurt? Or, is this guy going to really survive in Arizona? Yes, I believe he will. But when I look at JD5, I got to tell you, I have one of those feelings I get once every 2 or 3 years where I just feel like, oh my God, like this in the core of my being, deep into my bones, I know that this is going to land. Like, if he gets injured, I can't control that. But this guy not only looks the part, you could feel it. You could just feel it. It seems weird. I'm not one of those, like, guys that does any of those weird, I don't know, conversations about feelings and vibes and the aura or that bullshit. But I'm telling you, I feel it. I can feel it in my bones that this kid is the real deal just by looking at him. Drop back. And I told you this before, as a former track coach and track athlete, a minute in college, not very long, because I retired as soon as I got my freshman year. I'm like, I'm done running. But I have a knack for seeing track talent. And when a player's warming up, even doing their sprints right before their race, they're lining up at the finish line, they're stretching, the way they carry themselves, their shoulders, their muscle build, their structure, their stride. How does their stride look? How long is their stride? I can literally look at players or athletes warming up to run a mile run, an 800 run, a 400 run. I can tell you who's going to win 9 times out of 10 just by looking at them. And while that's a weird way of looking at it, I think it's a very good way of explaining why sometimes you can see in a player certain attributes that no other player has from a physicality perspective. And no one really talks about it because it's kind of a hard conversation to describe. And it's a very weird part of scouting that I think only a real scout or somebody that's done something as long as I've done. I do consider myself a virtual scout. I've been doing it for 25 years. On CBS and NBC Sports Radio for 19 years, on YouTube here for 5 years, and on NBC and CBS Sports Radio through the first couple years of the YouTube channel. And the pandemic took it out, the channel, the radio show, longest running fantasy football radio show and NFL draft type show in the history of the world, because it was 23 straight years as a part of it. 19. I've been doing this stuff for forever, scouting rookies, talking about it. Doing written write-ups and bowl predictions and all that stuff, and I look at this kid and I see a magical once in a 10-year type of time frame player evolving, emerging, and developing and blossoming, and just you get a glimpse of it. And this guy throwing a dime today to Jahan Dotson gave me so much hope for Jahan Dotson, who I think at the end of the day will just be a year early. I think Dotson has a breakout season, and even the metrics for Dotson were very good last year if you didn't look at whether he ended up getting the football thrown to him. His route runs, his route running, his actual route success rate, when he was open, how he got open, how many times he got open, how successfully he ran his routes, all those metrics that you would use to judge a player's routes without holding the stats against them because of the quarterback play, or the quarterback didn't have good rapport with the wide receiver. He was pretty much everything that he put on the table was the signs of a good wide receiver, a really good season that kind of mirrored what we expected him to be, but his numbers weren't there. This guy did not throw to him, Sam Howell. And part of me worries if Sam Howell does get in the lineup in Seattle, if he'll have that same effect with maybe JSN, but hopefully it's with Lockett and not JSN. I don't know. But Sam Howell did not throw to Dotson properly. He did not throw to him, really. I think Dotson, we're a year early, and the cost of entry on Dotson is so cheap. I'm all on board. I absolutely love it. I'll draft Dotson all day long at his cost of entry. But this guy right here, JD5, there's a reason that we have him on the Satterman list. There's a reason he's been on the Satterman list. I believe he was the first edition on the Satterman list, period. He hasn't ever been removed. He was the number one to be thrown on. I believe it was January, I forget the date that we threw him on. He's one of the first Sattermen he's the first Satterman we've ever inducted, but him and Penix Jr. were two of the very first 3 or 4 players we talked about at all. We may have put like Bijan on the Moon Man list or Breece Hall or Gibbs. We might have put Gibbs on the Mars Man list and then moved him to the Satterman list when we created it. I forget exactly in the actual season. We're putting him on there for next year in advance or something like that. But the first edition for 2024, I believe, was JD5. And I can't wait. I can't wait for this guy to win Rookie of the Year. I can't wait for this guy to be in whispers of, okay, a rookie can't win Rookie of the Year and NFL MVP, can he? Not saying he wins it, but the conversations will be kicked around at some point This is going to be an unbelievable rising. Washington's going to be better than Chicago. Everybody that says Chicago's the best team in offense and situation for a rookie quarterback in the last, amount of time anybody can remember is wrong. It's Washington. Washington's a better set-up team than the Chicago Bears. Not to mention, anybody wants to argue that, look at what Chicago's done for the last couple of decades. Don't tell me they're better set up. You might say you might like the potential setup because they've got Dunze and Keenan Allen, who's 32 years old, and they got DJ Moore, who we haven't seen, be elite like he was last year outside of Justin Fields, so we don't know when he's in a crowded room. You can't tell me that the Washington Commanders with Dotson, McLaurin, Ben Sinnott, who's going to be potentially the next Laporta, Eckler, Brian Robinson, a defense, absolute rising star team. Like, this is the Houston Texans last year, potentially. This is the Detroit Lions last year and the year prior, potentially. This is a team that is going to be, in my opinion, way better than the Chicago Bears in terms of fit for a rookie quarterback to come in and explode right away. I'm not saying Caleb can't do it. Caleb's looking good in camp, I'll admit it, from a physical perspective. He's throwing the football well. He's not overthrowing players. Caleb's looking okay, but remember that Fields looked great, too, in the offseason over in Chicago. Chicago has a problem with calling plays. Chicago has a problem with cultivating quarterbacks and growing quarterbacks and building them up. In practice, Fields looked great. In preseason, Fields looked great. So, I love JD5. JD5 to the freaking moon. And JD5 and AR5, there are 2 5s. Everybody knows that there are 2 5s.
There are 2 5s? JD5, AR5? There can't be.
Oh no.
They're gonna cross streams.
Alan says, I love the 5. I love the 5s. I love the 5s. AR5, JD5. I don't know what we'd do if JD5's, what was this, punter? Didn't give that number 5 number over to JD5. How could you not give it to JD5? So, yeah, absolutely. Let's see. We got another one. So they just wasted a pick on a backup running back that won't play. Sure, bro, you can keep drinking Kool-Aid. This is flashbacks to when this host said Javonte was a top 3 dynasty running back in 2022. Oh, before he tore his ACL? Oh, yeah, GOAT. Good one. GOAT, you got me and you got everybody in here. They're all just riled up for you, pal. Don't worry. I showed your message. I'm not running from your message. I'll put it right on the screen, pal, because you don't scare nobody with that message. Let's play us the Marvin. We'll do the Marvin clip in a second. But JD5 going to the freaking moon. Can't wait. Not to mention that guy is so far behind on the show. What are you watching? He's like 18 minutes behind, bro. We're 47 minutes into the show. You're talking about something that was like 18, 20 minutes ago. Your hate is so very far behind schedule. So speed it up. Mike Williams, we'll go through this stuff pretty quickly. Mike Williams not cleared to play football. Malachi Corley season underway. Okay, midseason monster Malachi Corley. Midseason monster Malachi Corley says, hey, you know what? I'll do it, and I'll do it live. Okay, McCaffrey, we talked about McCaffrey. Aaron Rodgers basically completely unrestricted at this point, which is fantastic. And if you watch him go out there and throw dimes to Garrett Wilson, it's marvelous to see. It's absolute glory watching these guys throw the football together. Tank Dell was seen participating in OTAs. He's fine from the shooting. We think maybe he got shot in the glute. We're not sure. You know, I'm not positive, but we're not hearing where. So it feels like maybe there was a glute involved. But anyways, he's running out, looking speedy, looking fast, looking great. Again, we talked about this. Kyren will miss OTAs, but McVay's even said he's not even concerned. He says, if anything, it's just precautionary. So the fact that people are already saying, I think in the live chat, somebody said, oh, dreaded Liz Frank injury. And then somebody's like, really? And they're like, oh my God, that's not good. And it just, you can read the chat. And I was reading the chat yesterday. I was like, what are we talking about? How do you let one person say Liz Frank injury and then you literally believe it and you just start panicking in the chat? Kyren Williams is the freaking moon. Blake Corum and Kyren going to absolute Saturn. Okay, Josh, and Tank wasn't hanging out with any bad kids, bro. He was a total bystander walking by this altercation that happened. So it wasn't Tank hanging out with the wrong crowd. Josh Jacobs, I mean, he should stay in and play Madden all day. I'll say that. Josh Jacobs is dealing with the hamstring issue in OTAs, so he's probably sitting out. So you got Josh Jacobs out. You got Christian McCaffrey sitting out by design. You got Kyren, Bijan, a handful of players that are sitting out OTAs, but everybody's judging Kyren. But okay, keep doing it. Keep telling everybody, please. Kraft is probably going to be out until training camp. So that's not, we'll see how quickly he comes back in training camp. Kraft. So that's good for Luke Musgrave. He's trying to grab a hold of that job, but I do like Kraft and Musgrave cuffed together on Underdog Fantasy promo code Smitty. So cuff the two together. Underdog Fantasy promo code Smitty. Do it live. And Deshaun Watson shoulder did not participate in Wednesday's OTAs. Sounds like he's still got some concern there, but again, like anybody else, it's OTAs, so we can't. If we're not going to judge Kyren, we're not going to judge Bijan. We can't judge Deshaun Watson's shoulder when he's been out there throwing, unless we hear something that's actually ended up re-emerging or something. Lab McConkey playing in the slot. Any starter snaps or first team snaps he's taken has been from the slot. That would be a great place for McConkey to do damage. I like the slot for McConkey. Keaton Mitchell. We've got a lot of people bring up Keaton Mitchell. Like, hey, do you think he takes the job? This guy is very, very far from being ready. He's on schedule, but they've made it a point. Even Harbaugh said, like, he's nowhere near being ready, and he's not going to be ready for week 1. He says sometime during the season. It's not like it's around the corner. So Keaton Mitchell is not anything close to ready. Won't be. He's not somebody you should really count on unless you're taking him deep in a best ball draft in hopes that by mid-season he's out there, and by the end of the season, if he's called upon, he can do good things. We've seen ACL recoveries be fine for players like Breece Hall and others their first year back, but it is a case-by-case basis type of thing, and we have nothing to go on to suggest that in this case we can say it mirrors Breece Hall's situation. If you don't have word that somebody's recovering fast, way ahead of schedule, and you see him out there running like Breece Hall was running, massive miles per hour, what was it, 20-something plus miles per hour, like I want to say it was like May or June, then you don't have enough knowledge to say anything about Keaton Mitchell and when he could even return, because he could have some sort of setback. Hedge traded Ferguson for Javonte Williams in Dynasty. I have Kittle. I don't hate that trade, but I don't know that either one's necessarily going to do anything for you. Like, I don't know what Javonte's going to be. It seems like Sean Payton's ruining his chances of ever emerging, so I'm not too excited about either side. I mean, I like Ferguson, but I don't think it's that crazy of a loss. And, Javonte still got upside. We still love Javonte. Before the ACL tear, he had the makings of a top 5 running back in the National Football League. No doubt about it. But, I think at the end of the day, would I rather have Ferguson over Javonte for 2024? The answer is probably yes. I don't know. I mean, without the run game, maybe he's utilized more. Or as Silver just said, Ferg is the number 2 option in Dallas. I mean, that's from a receiving perspective, it's probably pretty accurate. So I don't know. Javonte's he's in a Estime was drafted, the rookie running back. They've got McLaughlin there. There was already like a 2 or 3 headed monster before Estime joined, and they like Estime a lot. I would say that there's probably little hope for Javonte, unfortunately, and I don't love saying that because I love the kid, but there's a time to close the book and the door on a situation when you get hit with injury and then you get hit with the coach that doesn't want to use the player. You got to move on. You can't keep hanging on to something that could have been. But I definitely will say I'll never ever doubt that he could have been a top 5 running back if the cards were played in a particular way. CMC, Lamb, Aiyuk. The only thing we didn't touch on really, I think, is Aiyuk, right? So Aiyuk is still, in holdout mode, sort of. It's voluntary, right? So you're not really necessarily in full-blown holdout mode, but he clearly is disappointed. He's clearly, upset the way things are going. And him and Debo are probably not feeling the vibe right now, unfortunately. And I still think there's a shot one of them gets traded. Debo more so after June 1, it becomes more feasible contract-wise to get rid of him without getting hit with that dead cap hit of $29 million or whatever the hell it was. And so trading Debo after June 1 is certainly still in the cards. And keep in mind that the Niners drafted Ricky Pearsall in round 1. So they kind of probably do have an itch to use him. And if there's a upset wide receiver that wants out and a team that's willing to come after him, and the Washington Commanders we talked about yesterday are definitely in a position to maybe even consider that. Well, you never know. The Baltimore Ravens, imagine them getting Debo Samuel. The Buffalo Bills could still entertain one of those wide receivers. The Pittsburgh Steelers could still potentially entertain it, although they're looking at Mike Thomas. I don't know why. They bring in Mike Thomas. I don't know that they're going to be interested in a trade, but you never know. It still could happen. But I don't know. I feel like there's still a real possibility that the Niners want to gain value before one of these guys gets hurt or something. Because if Debo goes out there and gets injured, then they don't get anything for him to the degree they would if they traded him right now. But I do believe that the Niners are also not going to sell low, and it's going to take a wild offer. So what's the odds that a Aiyuk or Debo trade happens? Probably lower than 15% for both of them to be one of them to go. Like throwing both of them into that's a low percentage. If we're talking just Debo or just Aiyuk 15, that'd be a decent amount. But I'm saying the odds of either one of them getting traded below 15%. And it would have to be probably through some sort of very upset beef between the player and the team. And right now, I don't know that Debo has that. Debo's trying to focus on getting ready, and he seems motivated. So I don't think Debo's in a bad place. But I know he wasn't happy with the Pearsall drafting, but I think he's gotten over it. And he's just, business is business. He's out there to keep his job, and he's irreplaceable. He's the best yak yard receiver in the National Football League by a country mile. There's nobody that's a better yak yard receiver than Debo Samuel. Really holds some of the craziest statistical placing in the last 10 years in terms of yak yards. Debo is a monster, and he's the heart and soul of the team. I don't think they're wanting to trade him. I think Aiyuk is going to potentially be the guy asking for a trade if the team doesn't come anywhere close to his demands. And the only problem with what's going on is, I believe, between Aiyuk and the team is the San Francisco 49ers and Brandon Aiyuk, I believe, before the offseason really got going, I believe they were really close to meeting right in the middle. The problem is the Niners didn't want to move. They didn't want to sign. The Niner ways to wait until June or July to extend a player. So Aiyuk's waiting. Come on, give me 58 million guaranteed. Look at Ridley. Ridley got 50 something. I forget what it was. 55, 50 million. Maybe it was 50 million even. 52, 54. How much guaranteed money let me look at the Ridley deal. Calvin Ridley contract. He signed a $92 million deal, 46.9 fully guaranteed. That is not even that crazy. Like if this guy would have, if they would have offered Aiyuk 50 mil even guaranteed, coming off the back of the Ridley contract. Here's the Ridley contract right here. Coming off the back of the Ridley contract, we got a super chat here from Calvin Krim. Calvin, I'm going to hit this in 1 second. $10 holler. My main man, Calvin. Appreciate you. So $92 million deal, $46.9 million for Ridley. This is the first of the wide receiver contracts to drop. Once this dropped, I believe that Aiyuk and the Niners could have met at that 50 mil, 52 mil, 54 mil. And then you had the other contracts drop. You had the Devontae Smith deal, then the St. Brown deal, and then you had the A.J. Brown deal. The A.J. Brown deal was $84 million guaranteed. $84 million guaranteed. $84 million guaranteed. So far different than this 46.9. $84 million guaranteed. Let me repeat that 8 times. That's insane. So now this is the way I feel that this is going. So I think that this middle ground now is the Niners are so far as an organization away from middle ground. Middle ground is probably, I think Aiyuk's expectation, the Niners are probably saying, well, we still want to give him $50 million guaranteed. That's where we want to be. Middle ground would probably be about $65 million guaranteed. And Aiyuk's expectation, maybe he doesn't feel he's A.J. Brown, the 85 mil, but maybe he feels like I'm at least 70, 75 mil. Let's call it 70 mil guaranteed. I think they're very far apart. Like, even if this was 60 mil, 62 million guaranteed, I don't think the Niners are there. They could get there. If they get there, they're almost idiots for waiting this long, though, because you could have had them at 50, but because you wanted to wait. I just think that they're so far apart. There's no way Aiyuk can fold and go toward the middle when he feels so strongly about staying over here. Had both sides been really close, all it takes is the player or the team to say, screw it, we're so close, let's just jump over. It's really close. The gap is not far apart. I believe the gap is so far apart between the Niners and Aiyuk, and I could be wrong, and the Niners could just say, look, we screwed it. They screwed up here. Let's just pay the price and let's jump over and give him this money right here, 65 million, 62 million. At some point, Aiyuk's going to fold and say, I want $60 million guaranteed. You know what I mean? Like, he will, but how close can the Niners get to that folding territory? I don't know. It's your guess. Your guess is as good as mine. So at some point, if they're very far apart, and we heard recently that they're not even close to a deal, and that came from our boy Raj. Raj even reported on it, that the Niners and Aiyuk are not close to a deal, that I think if they get to a point where Aiyuk's like, damn, I don't think this is going to happen. I don't think the Niners are going to pay me. He either decides I'm going to put my helmet on, buckle my chin strap, and go out and bank on myself and play on my fifth-year option and get paid bank. Go get A.J. Brown's deal, because if he balls out, A.J. Brown's deal will be 3-4 wide receiver slots down by this time next year, and it will be a deal he easily could get even in his current situation, because the salary cap goes up and salaries go up every single year. So he will have a point where he's got to make the call. Bank on myself, buckle my chin strap, put my helmet on, and go out there and play for the money instead of locking myself in. Because if he gets 84 million guaranteed by waiting 1 year, getting paid what he's getting paid this year, by waiting 1 year, he will gain himself so much money if he ends up being right and he stays healthy and balls out. So we'll see what happens. Or he requests a trade and then does that if they don't trade him. And we'll see what happens. $10 hauler from Calvin Krim. Hey, Smitty, did you hear about Holland drama involving him throwing Fangio under the bus? Players apparently hate this guy. And the Eagles D cracked last year. Could spell a similar fate. I'm not concerned one single bit about what's going on in Philly. Philly's got everything buttoned up and under control. I believe that Philadelphia is going to have one of the better defenses in the National Football League this year. They drafted the two very best cornerbacks, or one could argue two of the top three cornerbacks in this draft, and they stole what's his face, Bijan, right out from under the Niners, who were going to pick him at that Pearsall spot. I'm not worried about the Philly D whatsoever under Fangio. I'm also not worried about Kellen Moore whatsoever. Kellen Moore is going to do what he did in Dallas, in Philly, with probably better weapons overall in Philly than he had in Dallas. So I think that they're going to explode. Thank you for the $10 hauler. Zero concern about Philly. Philly going to the moon. Philly winning the NFC Championship in my mind, and Jalen Hurts, NFL MVP, is what my early predictions would be. Thank you, Calvin, for the super chat. You're the man, the myth, the legend. Finally got Underdog in Michigan. Use code Smitty, Mike. Don't be shy, because you will get not only a special pick, but you should get your first deposit matched 50% on your first deposit, all the way up to $250. So if you deposit 100, you get 50. If you deposit 200, you get 100. So click that link. I'll drop it in the live chat. Make sure you're signing up using code Smitty. Don't even think about not doing it without that, or you're going to miss out on that little extra, pal. Appreciate you. The code Smitty, if they ask you how you heard about it, saying you already downloaded the app, then just put Smitty in there. Philly did great. Philly had an A-plus draft. Not an A-minus, A-plus draft. They did fantastic. Fantastic. Thank you, Calvin. Appreciate you. Thank you to all my super chatters tonight so far. You guys rock. Bros, Pros, Hector, Hedge, Calvin Krim. You guys absolutely rock. And let me see if I have any celebratory milestone messages. That boy said, why do you not value Terry with 85? I do. That boy. I talk about Scary Terry all the time. Scary Terry to the moon. Dotson to the moon. This entire wide receiver room is exploding. That's not accurate at all. You just may not hear it because I do 2.5 hour shows. But I talk about McLaurin all the time. I draft McLaurin in best ball all the time. McLaurin sometimes is my sneaky wide receiver 2 in builds where maybe I ignore the wide receiver position, at least the wide receiver 2 for a while. But love McLaurin. I draft McLaurin, very, very much in best ball. Bold prediction: Eagles will have a bottom 5 defense. Calvin Krim coming in against my Eagles, dropping a 50 wad.
$50. Give me $50, holla. Get by the brother, Smitty. Give me $50. Oh, yeah.
What is today? Today's the 22nd. 22nd. Calvin Krim. Philly, bottom 5D. It's your money, pal. It's your money. Calvin, appreciate you dropping that super chat wad, $50 holler. Eagles will have a bottom 5 defense. He doesn't like it. He doesn't like it. Your money. Your money. And I appreciate it. Thank you so much for dropping it. Dolphins were also injured down the line, says Fred. Fred's talking up the Dolphins. I don't blame you. You also have, I think, a worry. You have a worry in Tua Tagovailoa being, I don't know. He's now he's dropping weight. I don't understand why these guys are adjusting their weight so much constantly. Like the quarterbacks. I don't mind so much if a running back beefs up a little, if he's smaller, he's getting hurt. Like Achane gaining weight. I'd tell you, if Achane was like gaining weight and I didn't like it, I'd tell you. I'm very upfront about that. I'd say, I don't know if I love this. And I change directions. I can jump off an Achane like that because I do not glue myself to a take. I don't. It only feels that way to some people because I'm so hell-bent on the take. It's not that I'm just gluing myself and I'm not seeing like this whole, aren't you going to jump off Kyren? No. Oh, then you're just biased toward it. No, I'm not worried about OTAs. I'm not. I'm also not worried when his head coach loves him to death and people think that a backup running back who I like a lot is a must cuff. We talk about it all the time till we're blue in the face that Kyren's the best cuff in football. But I'm not worried about it at all. It doesn't mean I'm glued to my take and I'm digging a hole. Phone lines are open.
Call into the show. Call into the show.
Yeah, not a huge fan of Tua. He gained weight to add, some protection, and then he didn't get hurt. So it's like, maybe that was the formula, right? Maybe you should be right. Maybe that's your secret sauce weight, just like Lamar's was 215. Like, why are you going to go drop the weight and now have less protection? It's not like he's a very mobile guy. Bring back Frank the Tank. That's right. Rock out. Frank the Tank. Love that show. He's hang gliding. Idiot. Anybody doesn't know what we're talking about here. It's sad. Should have seen that movie. Go watch Old School. Go do it live. Do it tonight. It's your assignment. Old School is one of the best comedies of all time. I'm sorry, the phone lines weren't open, I think. Here, dial in.
Call into the show. Call into the show.
Brought to you by theattic.shop. Theattic.shop. Dial in. Yeah, Philly's gonna. I know a lot of people are gonna doubt based on last year, but Philly's changing it. I think Fangio mixed with the two corners they brought in, mixed with a lot of other moves they made on both sides of the football. Not to mention that I think what people don't like, Philly was great the year prior, on D. They gave up some yards and touchdowns from time to time, but like they still were a dangerous, opportunistic defense, and their offense struggled in a lot of ways last year. And when your offense struggles, your defense struggles. Look at the Jets. The Jets are 10 times the defense they really were last year because you couldn't see it. They were constantly tired, constantly on the field. Now a team like the Eagles, you give them two cornerbacks, shorten the field essentially, it's going to be a whole different ballgame. I think the Philadelphia Eagles are going to be a very crafty defensive pickup in fantasy, and they're going to be very overlooked to the tune of like outside the top 10. Maybe not much past 12, 13, 14, 15, but they'll be a defense you can grab like when defensive runs have already happened and you're midway through and you're like, give me the Philadelphia Eagles. I also think the Texans are potentially a top 5 defense in 2024. So the Texans and Eagles are probably my 2 sleeper defenses for 2024, and maybe both of them crack the Wild West board or something like that, so we can get some defensive goodness on the board for once. I thought about making a defensive moon man for once in a blue moon, but Yo, Smitty, you hear about Pittman's injury? Not serious, but didn't hear you bring it up. Yeah, there's a lot of other players I could have mentioned. There's a lot of dings and players banged up. Russell Wilson trying to keep his quarterback one job. Fields saying he wants to compete. Fields doesn't feel he's a backup, but that's great to hear. I'm excited about that. Fields is hungry and he wants the job bad. Dak Prescott throwing to Zeke Elliott. Everybody's talking about that. It's so funny. I mean, I'm doing it too. Like that JD5 dime that JD5 threw, or the Mahomes tossed him, to Hollywood Brown. Nobody was on him, but just like everyone's getting excited posting these. And then when you hear somebody you don't really love throw one, you're like, it's just OTAs. Everybody's filled with bias, and it's fine. It's that time of year. People getting excited about their teams. Your quarterback's throwing dimes. Good for you. Penix Jr. and Cousins looking good, obviously. But JD5 just looks like a whole different level of good. Like he shouldn't be looking like he's looking out there. He's commanding everything. This guy's such a likable guy, such a potential leader, and I believe he commands the locker room, the huddle, the coaching staff, the fan base from day one, from the jump. This guy's a winner. He's the best pocket passer coming out of college, arguably in many ways in the last 10 years. Not to mention the best pocket passer from this draft class. And people that say it's Caleb or anybody else, they really just are unaware. It's not their fault, but they really just think that's just a guess, and it's not. It's a proven factual statement. But it's all right. Not everybody's gonna have the same viewpoint, which is fine. It's all about respect. You can disagree. Calvin Krim just put a $50 bold prediction against one of the things I want and have been talking about. I don't care because he's respectful about it. It's the haters that come in here and they start saying like, don't listen to this guy, the show, blah, blah, blah. And then they think that that's acceptable behavior. Like, you can disagree all you want. There's a certain way about bringing about a topic that you feel goes against the grain of the show. I was listening. Yeah, fade Allen and Hurts. I don't know why anybody would tell you to fade Allen and Hurts, Fred. Fred says he's being told that elsewhere. Come on, bro. I mean, I know you know, but good God. Pittman bumps his knee. He's okay. Pittman's a guy that I think could have a good year, but I never really rank him or Waddle as high as everybody else, so I never really own either one of them. I have a couple best ball teams with Pittman. I timed out on him the other day, and I didn't hate it because I drafted AR5 right after that back-to-back and cuffed him, but I'm definitely not a huge Pittman guy to the degree that other people are, but it doesn't mean that I call him a bust. Doesn't mean I dislike him. It doesn't mean I'm predicting a bust out of him. It doesn't mean any of those things. I just don't love him quite as much. But let's see if there's any other news. Geno Smith said he feels like he really has a good grasp on on the offense that Ryan Grubb's deploying, which is good. Keith Mitchell, we talked about that. Michael Pittman Jr., we talked about that. Should be fine after colliding with Jones and OTA, so there's a little bit of update on this. So per Steichen, the 2 players bumped knees in practice. Pittman went down hard, walked off the field, and with the trainers in the middle of the session, Steichen didn't seem overly concerned about it. We'll find out more tomorrow. Maybe Pittman is, I didn't have this one up. Let me put this on the screen if I can screenshot this and send it over to my system here. But there's going to be concern for everybody that's missing OTAs. I mean, why would it be a good thing? You're never happy about it, but in some respects, as long as the injury, like in the case of Kyren's, is not a big deal. In the case of Pittman's, it's not a big deal. In the case of Bijan, not a big deal. It's an ankle. It's not like we're worried about any sort of high ankle sprain or anything. If we hear something like that, we can have a conversation about it. But I mean, in some ways, you're almost like happy that the player's not going to put on all this extra mileage in the offseason. This is the report from Pittman. Pittman should be fine after colliding with his cornerback in OTAs. Apparently there was some concern when it happened, and it took him a minute to figure out if he was okay or not, but that seems to be okay as of now. But I'll give you more information tomorrow. There could be something that emerges from it, but I doubt it. Pittman or McLaurin? That's a good question, Calvin. I'd probably say they're pretty even. I think McLaurin might be getting drafted a little later, though. So cost of entry-wise, McLaurin's costing less, I believe. I would imagine. Let me go look at the underdog ADP. It could have been updated. It could be changed. If I go to the wide receivers, I look at Michael Pittman Jr. He's ranking at 30 overall. McLaurin is going, at 56. So they're not even close. So this question's hard to answer. I'd say cost of entry, give me McLaurin and then an earlier running back or something. If you're telling me, which one do I pick? Well, I'm picking Pittman, then I'm trading for him for McLaurin and more. You know what I mean? So I can't really answer this. If you said, hey, who outscores the other? I think it's pretty damn close because I do think Dotson and McLaurin are going to go neck and neck, head to head. How do these experts have the Commanders only winning 5 games? I have no idea. The Commanders, I think, could be, even if they don't win the playoffs. Thank you, Rock Out, for that $5 hauler, by the way. Rock Out to the moon. Even if they don't make the playoffs, I'm not saying it'll be easy to make the playoffs, but they will be what the Detroit Lions were the year before this year, where they weren't quite that team, but everybody was like, okay, we hear you. We hear you. We know you're coming in hot in 2023. And boy, did the Detroit Lions come in hot. Practically made the Super Bowl, and then it all unraveled and didn't. But that was a great season. So if the Commanders don't make the Super Bowl, they don't make the playoffs. They're not making the Super Bowl this year. You never know. They don't make the playoffs this year. They'll be shocked. But they could certainly make the playoffs. And I might even get amped up on that. I think this kid's winning Rookie of the Year, JD5, and I think that people start talking about him in weird ways that make a lot of people scoff and get uncomfortable and say, you can't start tossing around MVP talks for a rookie. We'll see. I'm not saying he's in the top 3 of that. I'm just saying when people open their mouth about it, it's going to piss people off because he's doing that good. And people are like, come on. I mean, AR5, people were getting super amped about AR5. He became a top 5 to 6 fantasy quarterback right before he got injured, and he hadn't played that many games yet. So JD5 is going to climb up people's rankings and cause a lot of panic and ruffle a lot of feathers. But 5 games, damn straight they're winning more than 5 games. This team is going to be way more dangerous than people think. And it's going to be a fun thing to watch as people scramble to pretend that they kind of saw it coming. I knew JD5 was pretty good. Yeah, sure you did. Sure you did. Sure you did.
Call into the show. Call into the show.
Let's see. Someone wanted the Larry Fitzgerald. Or Larry Fitzgerald. The Marvin Harris. I was talking about Marvin Harrison Jr. being a combination of Larry Fitzgerald and, I don't know, try and describe AJ Green, Larry Fitzgerald, and something else that you can't even pinpoint, It's just an absolute monster in the making, and that's why that was on my mind. But somebody wanted the Marvin Harrison Jr. video.
Hi. What would you like?
Footballs, please. Lots of footballs, please.
Coming up.
He's Marvin, he's 11 feet tall, and he loves to consume the football. He's Kyler, he's 4 feet tall, but starving Marvin will answer the call. He's Kyren, he's 7 feet tall, and he knows how to handle a ball. He's Kyren, he can take frowns and turn them upside down with his touchdown.
We interrupt this program to bring you a special message from the Bruce's mother.
Get Bijan.
Your Bijan card has been revoked.
All right. I am probably out of here early tonight. I don't know if my phone lines are broken. I think they might be. I might have to reinstall them, which happens every once in a while. Calvin, thank you for dropping the super chat. Everybody, thank you for being here. I don't know if we have any gifted memberships. I will definitely look real quickly to make sure I'm not missing that. Appreciate every single one of you being here. We've got over 200 total people in here, in and out on Twitter. We've had 50 to 70 to 80. On YouTube, we've been at 150, 170. We're at 130 right now. Appreciate every single one of you on YouTube watching. Hit that thumb up button on the way out the door. I will see you potentially later tonight. It may be one of those nights where I don't go live a second time. I'm not positive. It depends. But I'll definitely be back tomorrow for a midday stream. Like almost guaranteed midday stream. Can't guarantee things, but almost guaranteed midday stream on top of tomorrow's 8 p.m. show. So get ready for that. I don't know if it'll be news driven or what, usually is, or if it'll be some sort of like, running back ranking video or wide receiver or something like that, or a Moon or Mars man unveiling. See you all later. Appreciate every single one of you. Hit that like button on the way out the door and go smash your drafts. Go take Kyren. Take Kyren from the doubters. We'll have more on CMC and why he's, not showing up to OTAs when he was last year. I don't know what that's about. I don't know if it's some sort of contract maneuver. We'll have to see. But the Niners got to pay a lot of guys, including Brock Purdy. So we'll see about that. Derrick Henry looking massive. He hit the Mars man list. If anybody's late to the party, go rewatch that part at the beginning of the show. First 20 minutes is all Derrick Henry.
He's on a shuttle to Mars. Mars man.
Who's playing for $4 million in incentives. So Derrick Henry has an incentive structure that makes him Mars man material and an ADP that is glory at 31 overall. $4 million in incentives. He gets $1 million if he runs for 1,500 yards. He gets $1 million if he scores 15 touchdowns. Guy's playing for $2 million in total yards and touchdowns alone. If that's not a guy you don't want on your fantasy team, I don't know what you want. And for him to be a Mars man, he's got to have good value, right? Because how do you hit the Mars man list if you're a big name getting drafted high? You don't. You're getting drafted at 31 overall. Go smash that on Underdog Fantasy. Promo code Smitty before it's too late. Here's the link. I'll drop it one more time in the live chat. Hit this link now. Sign up ahead of time so that when we do drafts, you're not scrambling to try and get into the draft. But hit that link right now. Underdog Fantasy. Code Smitty will get it done, and the link's in the description if you're watching the replay of the video. Bob from Cali, you got 30 seconds. I'm out of here.
Smitty, do you have like a list of people you're fading this year? I know most people who watch your shows know by now which guys to draft and which not, but you don't really cover the guys that you're trying to fade. So if you could talk a little bit about that, maybe come out with a video, that'd be great.
Yeah, we'll definitely have something on that. I mean, in a nutshell, if I was to talk about one or two guys real quickly, and we won't go into too much detail, I'll just say, looking over the top, like 30, 40 overall, it's tough to even find somebody that, like, I would say, that I consider like a bust. I would say, which is odd for me because I usually can pinpoint 4 or 5 guys. I would say I'm not liking the values of like DJ Moore and Waddle and those guys when they're breaching, and Neighbors when they're breaching like the second and third rounds. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. There's too many other players. It's not that I think that they'll bust or have a horrible year, but those are not players you want. When you draft Neighbors in the second or early third round, I mean, you're not going to look like you have a deep team. You're just not. You draft Waddle as your second/third drafted player. I don't know how you're going to love your team walking out of that. He's the number 2 for his offense. You don't even know if the running backs are really some total better option than Waddle in terms of total targets. So it's like, I don't know why anybody would want to draft Waddle that high. If Waddle was going in the 4th round, I would like it, but Waddle's going so much higher than that. He oftentimes goes, let's see, Waddle's ADP is right around 27 overall. So he's like the beginning of the 3rd round, but I've seen him go at the end of 2. It's crazy. Or the turn picks. A Neighbor, same thing. He's right around 28, 27, 29. I'd also say I don't love Devontae Adams' value deep into the 2nd round, like mid-2nd round right now. He's showing that he's getting a little older. He doesn't really have the quarterback situation. Like, why are we drafting Adams in round 2 like a cemented in round 2 player? I don't know. So those would be my first guys that throw out there, and it happen to be majority wide receivers that I would talk about, I guess. But DJ Moore also doesn't feel great, in the 2nd or 3rd round. All right, hey, Colin Bob, we'll do an avoid video. Don't worry, and we'll maybe do an avoid board. Like we'll do we're gonna do a Wild West, and maybe in that we'll have that group. Maybe in there we'll have the I don't know, the drunk tank or something like that, or the Wild West jail cell or something like that. We'll figure it out. All right, later, bro.
Yep.
The Patrick 12-month membership question. Just tuned in to get the feel for the show, but you are talking. You're taking calls. I'd love to get your thoughts on a couple things. Patrick, I'm on my way out, bro. Hurry. Dial in. I'll give you a minute if you want. Just a minute, and then I'm out of here. Because you are late. You are late. So thank you, that boy, for your membership question about JD5 Terry. Thank you, Patrick, for yours. On my way out the door. Thank you, Bros Pros Hector. Thank you, Hedge, Calvin Krim with the $50 hauler and the $10 hauler. Calvin to the moon. Let's send Calvin to Saturn. Let's send him to Saturn. Let's do Calvin right. Rock out with a 2. Rock out with a 5. Rock out dropping biscuits left and right. Appreciate all of you. The Patrick, you missed your opportunity, pal. I'm out of here. See you all later. I don't know that I'll be back tonight. I may try and do like a late night Dynasty stream or something if I do anything. That's it. All right. See you all later. I'll be back tomorrow. I'll do a midday stream, and then I'm going to do the 8 p.m. show. So almost guarantee, 2 streams tomorrow.